Do you ever go to the grocery store without a list? Of course you do. We all do. Maybe you've got a special meal you're making that you make all the time, so you know what you need. You don't need a list, right? Then you get to the grocery store and you weave between aisle after aisle because you think of other things you need in an area of the store that you've already visited. It's a waste of time. And then you get home and realize that you forgot the garlic that you need for your recipe. There's no question that you would save time and possibly money by making a list, which is an example of two of our principles: define the job in detail and break the job down. When you have a list, even if you don't organize it by aisle or store, you can scan your list when you're in the produce department and then get all the produce while you're there, so you don't have to keep coming back. Website planning and development works exactly the same way. When you break the job down and establish deliverables and milestones before you begin development, it really prevents a ton of rework. And rework means less money. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How to save money, which is making money, by breaking the job down. But before we do that, I want to remind you that these episodes of Project Management for Profit are brought to you by the WP Project Managers Academy, where we teach all kinds of website developers how to get projects completed on time, within budget, with features that meet the client's business requirements without sacrificing profit. And that last one is the big one. And that's how project management becomes a profit center. We have a free version and a paid version. We'd love to see you inside the Academy. Just go to wproadmaps.com/join us, and you can find out all the details and join right there on that page. Okay, so let's get on with the details about breaking the job down. Now, in the previous videos in this series, we have talked about the 6 principles of productivity management for website development. For website development success, website project success, you can call it whatever you want to, but it's these 6 principles. And we talked about define the job in detail, and that's really more of the umbrella principle, because if you think about it, breaking the job down is part of defining the job in detail. But today we're going to talk about breaking the job down. Let's talk about what some of the advantages are of breaking the job down. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, the first advantage is focused feedback. By breaking the job down into small chunks, you help your client stay on task and focus on the components that you need them to focus on. This way they don't get overwhelmed or sidetracked by other elements. It actually leads to a more precise and actionable input from them on your deliverables. The next one is risk mitigation. When you divide a project into smaller pieces, then you can detect issues or misconceptions way earlier in the process. And if something goes wrong or isn't meeting the client's requirements or the project's requirements, it's going to be much easier to identify and rectify those problems early on when it's confined to a small chunk of the project. After that comes improved morale and motivation. When you have a completed and approved deliverable, there's just a natural human sense of accomplishment that you get with that. And so the more often you can provide that to your team or yourself, then it moves the project along better and everybody's a lot more motivated. Another advantage is better time management. When you have clear milestones and deliverables, you're going to have better estimates of cost, but also better estimates of time, because you're breaking it into small increments and you're detailing out what all the steps are to create those deliverables. Then you have clearer communications. Breaking a project into chunks actually helps set the expectations with your client or the stakeholders. So they're going to know what to expect, and then that's going to lead to a more structured and efficient communication method. Another advantage of breaking the job down is incremental approvals. This just makes it easier on everyone. When you have a giant website specification and you want the client to review that and approve it, and it's got everything in it all at once, totally overwhelming. Or sometimes when you just combine 2 things, like the style and branding and the function. If you put those together, they're going to get distracted by one thing or the other. So it's really better if you can break things down so they're only focusing on one type of asset or deliverable that they're reviewing and approving. And then finally, the big one is when you break the job down like we recommend and we teach inside the academy, it's going to save you a ton of money because it's going to save you time and it's going to save you rework. It really is the ultimate money-saving hack for projects. Break the job down into small pieces and have your client approve each piece as you go along. Then if you get to a future piece and that sparks a change to a previous deliverable, you just invoke your change control procedure. So this is a very organized and detailed, processed way of doing things. And trust me, your client will love you for it. Now let's look at some examples of breaking the job down. Where can you actually do this throughout the project? This starts as early as the pre-proposal process, because during the pre-proposal process, you can provide a much more precise estimate in your proposal if you go ahead and at least define the sitemap and get the client to validate that those are the correct pages. Otherwise, there's no way for you to estimate the content. There's no way for you to estimate that the level of effort that it's going to take if you don't know the exact pages. And it's not a good idea to just go forth with an assumption. You need to get the client to validate that. So that's one way of breaking the job down. That's your first chunk, is the sitemap. Then the next step is your proposal. There's two places in the proposal where you can break the job down. One is by defining what is in scope and what is out of scope. Now, a lot of people say if it's not in the proposal, then it's out of scope. That is not precise enough because clients make certain assumptions about what they think they know about website development. So you have to be very specific about what is out of scope, especially when there are things that you don't do. Let's say that you do not do ongoing SEO, then you need to put that as out of scope. If you require that folks enroll in your care plan, then that needs to be definitely listed as in scope. Now, another thing we do to break the job down even further, and we break the scope down even further, is that we divide that in scope section between what's in scope and our responsibility and what's in scope and the client's responsibility. Then you're also in your proposal going to define the deliverables. What are you going to deliver that the client needs to review and approve? And so there's how you've now detailed out what those things are that you're going to deliver to the client. And then there's the project plan. You're going to break your project down into phases, activities, tasks, and milestones. And you're going to list on that project plan every little thing you do, including the administrative tasks. And that is the proper way to break the job down to make sure that you don't forget anything and that you get paid for everything you do. And then finally, during the discovery, as I mentioned before, you can use those incremental approvals as a way to break the job down, smaller deliverables, get each one approved as you go along. And then when you get to the end, you're just asking for one final approval on the whole thing. It's okay, Mr. Customer, you have approved the sitemap, you've approved the layout, you've approved the content specification, you've approved the functional requirements. So we've now put all that together and included your project plan, and here is your project spec. And they can just review the final pieces of that and say, okay, fine, we're all good to go at that point. And that's your go or no go decision. And finally, let's look at exactly how breaking the job down can save you money. Some of these are things I've already mentioned, like early problem detection. It prevents really costly, large-scale revisions later because you can catch things way earlier. Efficient resource allocation. It avoids paying for idle time. If you've got a team and you haven't allocated those resources properly, there might be times in your project plan where they're just spinning their thumbs and you're paying for them not doing anything. Minimize rework. This is really the biggest one because rework always costs more, either in time or money or both. Predictable budgeting makes it way easier to provide more precise estimates when you've got things broken down into small pieces. And then there's incremental payments. We talked about incremental approvals, but you can also tie those milestones into payments, which can increase your cash flow and make things go a lot easier for you rather than 50% upfront and 50% at the end. Better change management. By breaking things into chunks, You're going to have fewer large changes, which means lower costs to the client. Now, whenever you can save the client money, that's actually money in your pocket, because chances are if you can save them money and show them how you did it, then they are going to use you in the future and refer you to others. It's much easier to make changes to small pieces of the project than to have to go back and make a global change across the entire project. So that's why the small chunks really do help improve change management. And then finally, reduce scope creep, which is similar to change management, but these smaller chunks, it helps keep the project from expanding without you getting paid for it. The bottom line is this: breaking a website development project into smaller deliverables or chunks is going to introduce efficiencies, early detections, better resource management, and all of those things lead to substantial cost savings. Ka-ching! That's more money in your account. I hope you found this helpful and that you've thought of some ways that you can break your projects down to make it easier for you, the client, and to hold on to more of your profit margin. In upcoming videos, we'll go in depth on the other 4 principles that make up the 6 principles for website project success. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.